We late COVID.
This is not a show and might not even be a connection. Here's Judah and Guest.
As you'd have guessed, and we are getting started a little late today. That's what happens, you know. We got lives and wives.
Wives and lives.
And you okay there, buddy? You're coughing like crazy there.
Just a little cough. Trying to
Hey,
get my
good
light
to
working.
see you.
Good to be seen. Good to see you.
How are things going?
They're coming along.
Good.
Coming along. Making transition. Making a transition. So out of the old job and into a new. But I think the new thing isn't really it's not a job.
It's more of a business, right?
It's like being self-employed. So technically I'm not I don't own the business. I'm a contractor, but I am essentially self-employed.
I like it.
Yeah.
So private practice, right?
I'm working in a private practice, but
partnership practice.
Yeah, I'm a clinical affiliate and contractor.
Well, speaking of clinical, one of the things that I've faced quite a bit, not just as a clinician, but as a man. Whoop. Hello?
There we go.
But as a man, is the idea that men cannot ask for directions, right?
Men can, but men struggle. I struggle.
Yeah, I do too.
With asking for directions or
reading directions.
I can read directions pretty well, but when that goes awry, like
I am subject. I am subject to the motif is in I do. When it comes to reading directions, I'd rather try to figure it out on my own.
Well, there's I don't know if I've told you this one, maybe not. There's a story about Daniel Boone that applies to this problem.
Okay.
So even during his lifetime, Daniel Boone was a bit of a celebrity.
Yeah.
And obviously, he's become a myth at this point. But even in his lifetime, he was a bit of a celebrity. And someone asked him, because he was well known for traveling out in the wilderness, have you ever been lost? And his response was, no, but I misplaced my camp for a couple of days once.
Why why is it so difficult for me as a man to admit that I need help?
Or like in the issue with like directions, it's like sometimes it's just really simple. Like I'm wrong. I'm gonna put this in quotation marks. I'm wrong. Like I think I know where I'm going, but I don't. And I've getting out of the clinical management business, so to speak, where I was really focused on the HR business, customer service, just general operations, and I would not infrequently find myself having to deal with customer client issues. And then I didn't necessarily delve too much into what individual clinicians were doing with their own work. However, sometimes when people complain, you have to ask questions. And the struggle I had was that it was actually very easy to work with female clinicians because they were pretty open to having a conversation about what might have gone wrong. Men, on the other hand, very frequently have an explanation that's more like a defense. Well, but
what's funny is even as we're talking about it, I feel a defensiveness. I feel my defensive, my defense is going up, and trying to explain why it is a good thing that we can't ask for directions, why we don't need help.
If I'm lost, I'll be honest. Like if I'm lost, like truly lost, and the opportunity arises. And this is, I think, with me come with age, and I think where I've noticed it most isn't so much traveling and getting lost. I normally I've got a pretty good sense of direction, but shopping. Like you go to the grocery store and it's like I can't find the whatever. And I think at one point in my life I would have spent an inordinate amount of time trying to find it on my own. And at this point in my life, I'm like, okay, where's the nearest person that might be able to answer this question? Because I got stuff to do. And I'm looking I'm looking for a particular laundry detergent. I can't find the laundry detergent.
This is not a show and might not even be a connection. Here's Judah and Guest.
Wow. I clicked the button. Sorry.
You've got a magic button that just like gives us the intro? That's sweet.
Sorry. So, not to interrupt you, that's not the end of the show, folks.
No, that's not the end of the show. So no, I mean, as I've gotten older, I've become a little bit more open to that. And it just struck me, at least in the last 18 months, that it was the guys that were the most problematic.
Yeah.
That I was working with, as far as like having to take some ownership or some responsibility, and then demonstrate that they're doing that. Well, it's like if I had $1 for every excuse I heard, and I love these guys. I mean, really and truly, like over time, some of them initially I kind of had hard spots with, and then over time they all grew on me. But it's one of these things I'm just like, come on, guys. I mean, you're making us all look bad. Quit it. By the way, this show is brought to you by Cheerwine.
You're drinking a little Cheerwine, huh?
Yeah.
So Lent is over. I'm able to partake again in the old Bogue Sound whiskey, bourbon. I watered this one down, though. I realized it's high alcohol content. I needed I put a lot of water in it.
A little too high.
Yeah. But this thing with men, with me as a man, and my inability to admit failure. Okay, maybe this is the problem, but there is something that comes up in me that wants to defend it, and that wants to say there's something, but there's also something maybe clinical in it that there's always I do have sort of a tool in my tool chest of clinical directions that says, well, how is that serving you? Like Sure. It doesn't always have to be bad, right? Like there may be some way that it is serving men. It is maybe some way that it is bringing.
Well, the first one that comes to mind, is you can't if you don't make an action that demonstrates that you need help, that you need more than just your own resources, then you don't admit that you're wrong. That you don't display any vulnerability. I mean, it keeps that, I guess in my mind, like initially, it keeps all of that intact, unchallenged. And on the other hand, I think there is an aspect of like it can motivate to some degree, maybe to actualize one's resources, internal resources yourself. But I often wonder how effective is it? Like, how useful of a strategy is that?
Well, there is the adage that I come back to a lot in like a deep philosophical leaning towards this adage, and that is that survival is the mother of all invention.
Mm-hmm.
And
necessity.
Necessity, yeah. The vice versa, though, is true too. That complacence is the mother of all failure.
It
Often
it
drives me as I would say taps into something masculine in me in the sense that I need something. Whereas I wouldn't you agree in your experience? In my experience, women, um, the female, the animus in female is much more likely to be motivated towards success without a challenge. Whereas there's something that needs to spark. I
well,
need some
I
kind of
think
motivation.
the difference, in my opinion, is, and this is, I think, very culture bound,
Hmm.
is that women are much more likely to collaborate in order
Hmm.
to achieve
For
success.
sure.
Whereas
Yes.
men are more likely, Western men in particular, are more likely to, want to do it solo.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't know if it's just Western men. I think there's something inborn that that's and I paint with a broad brush, not everybody. That we have overlap and variations. There is something more relational in women, and
mhm.
there is in the female makeup and purpose, right? And
Well,
there's
even
something
biologically.
right. I mean, it has to be like this is one revelation I had was the fact that there is something ultimately dual about a woman that a man can never have, right? Like a man will never be fused with another person like
Mm,
physically,
sure.
like a woman can be. Not all women,
But
but the
some,
potential, many, most.
or in actuality, I mean, I think that, I mean, just, you know, becoming a mother changes things. Like um, it's not to say that people can't be nurturing. It's just it's a different experience.
Yeah.
Um, it's a different experience. And like I mentioned, biologically, like women tend to have more mirror neurons than men. Um, so the ability
Wait,
to
what was that? Have more what?
mirror neurons.
I've never heard that.
Oh,
Explain. I was
really?
like, yes, mirroring.
Mirror
What?
mirror neurons. So in our brain, there are parts of our brain that are populated with these mirror neurons that read, um, you know, read facial expressions, and then we tend to mirror each other emotionally when people are connected. Women tend to have
Hmm.
more mirror neurons, and this has a lot to do with attachment, like with infants. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's all communicated. That's all mediated by these mirror neurons.
Hmm.
Men have them. We just have less of
Fewer.
them, fewer. We're slightly more inhibited in that way,
Hmm.
and I think that and
Interesting. I
that
never
bears
heard that.
out in, yeah. So I mean, there are some legitimate biological differences. And it's not a hard and fast rule. I'm not sure if there's even an effective way to measure those entirely. Like,
Right.
I'm going to get a count of my mirror neurons, um, but that's just a example of there being
Mm-hmm.
differences. And but those mirror neurons are also like really key
Mm-hmm.
for nonverbal
Empathy,
communication.
in
Yeah,
particular.
empathy and nonverbal communication.
Yeah.
Nonverbal communication and connection are key to cooperation and collaboration. Um,
Hmm.
Now, and that's the thing. Like when I think of like great examples of men working in um, concert, you don't see it typically. I think as much in. I guess the image that comes to my mind is more old school, old style, tribal type things, like guys sitting in the circle and then going out on a hunt, or even
Yeah.
going to war. Like,
Yeah.
we say at the end of every show, Lord willing, the creek don't rise, but
Yeah.
There were plenty of examples of um,
Men working in concert.
working in concert largely with nonverbals.
Yeah.
And being able to read those and respond very quickly.
Yeah. Well,
So
real quick,
hunting and combat are the ones that come up really quick.
interesting. Let's come back to that. Scott is watching, and we had I don't know if you guys were able to partake in our podcast on Monday, but we talked about NFTs. Well, it got a little nerdy. I'll admit it. I got a little nerdy about NFTs and the blockchain and art.
Okay.
But it was interesting. Scott and I were talking about it, but he says, not sure I agree with the premise of the discussion. Wink, wink, mansplaining.
Oh, we're going to mansplain it.
We'll come back to that. And then also Jim Pass. Hey, guys. Jim Pass, thank you for being in another one of our off in the comment section. And viewers, gotta have Jim on the show. Mm-hmm. Hey, guys. It goes all the way back to the garden. Adam told the Lord it was the fault of the woman. You gave me.
Sure. Yeah, it's a classic excuse.
And then Deborah Rhodes, thank you for being in the chat. Debbie, Joseph Rhodes' mom, pleased to have you in the chat. She says, obviously, you've never needed directions before. GPS.
Well, I needed directions for GPS, but I've always been a map guy. Like, I love maps. Always had lots of maps.
I remember maps.
I've got gazetteers,
Yeah, those were made out of paper, right?
Yes, the analog. Yeah, old school. Because there's no school like the old school.
But that brings up an interesting point, and we'll come back to these, all three of these, but the GPS aspect, there's almost like a crutch that I use as a man, and I see that could be widespread. The technology is that, like, I won't rely on another person, but I will rely on technology.
Which is relying on another person.
Is it?
It's a tool, right? I'll agree that technology
is a robot another person.
Yeah, but another person. Do you make robots? Is it a robot that I make? I mean, I don't know how to make a GPS.
Don't robots come from space?
Well, they could.
No, you're right. You're right. Ultimately, it's a map, right? It's written by somebody else.
But it also, like, it's a tool. It's made by another person, but we don't have to have a vulnerable conversation with that person, right? Like with the tool maker. Like, hey, I'm lost. Do you know how to get to wherever?
It's that layer of distance between us, right? That's built in, where I don't have to relate with anybody.
Sure.
I just receive a message. Thank you. And this is what we need to do. All right. It's
turn right here. No, I don't want to turn right here. Or whatever
because that's something that is inborn. I mean, in my experience in the male, whatever, what have you, is
the manosphere.
The manosphere is the desire to solve problems, and so
sure,
sometimes that means fix it.
Problem
but
solved.
I want to fix it, right? Like, that's what we're talking about.
Sure,
like,
yeah, I want to fix it. I don't want to call a plumber. I want to fix it.
There's a desire to fix things, right?
There can be. I think some people there's problem solving, right? And then I think I can make a distinction here sometimes, because and it also depends on certain means. You know, some people are goal oriented, like,
Hmm.
and they don't care who does it.
Yeah.
Like, I'll have a plumber do it. I'll have like, I don't work on my cars.
And those
It's
tend to
just
be
not
the
my
more
thing.
successful people in life, right? It's like, will I make
I,
money if I get somebody else to do it? Yes, let's do it. Boom, right?
boom. Versus I'm going to fix it myself. And I think there's costs and benefits to both of those approaches. Um,
What is the
there's
benefit of
some
doing
joy,
it yourself though?
well, just the pleasure of doing it yourself, the
Yeah.
pride of doing it yourself,
That
the
goes back to
experience.
we had a whole discussion about manual labor and the
Yeah,
glory of manual
yeah.
labor.
It,
Being able to accomplish goals and have the physical result to say,
sure.
look
Yeah,
what I've done, right? Like
yeah.
there's
Like I
something wonderful for a man, especially.
well, and I think there's it's just a question of like where. Like, I took my truck in to get worked on because I don't work on my truck. That's just not my thing. But I spent most of the afternoon working in my garden. Why? Because I enjoy it, and it's tasty. It will literally bear fruit. Um,
Parenthetically, uh, I've got 2 Chicago fig trees growing. One growing in my house, one growing in the yard. I gave to my dad, but they're flourishing.
they're
That's
they're they're,
because you
they're
said
coming on.
they're
They're,
coming on.
yeah,
You
it's a little
suggested
warmer. It's a little warmer at your house than
that.
my house.
It's probably it's been nice here,
You got.
but so for you, the gardening aspect is more of a domain that you feel
I just enjoy
control
it.
over
I
or
just
need
enjoy
control.
it. Yeah. Well,
Enjoy.
I don't. It really comes down for me to pleasure and enjoyment. I do not enjoy working on my truck.
You know what's
I
weird
do
is
enjoy getting my
I
hands dirty in the ground.
I'm not very good at mechanical. I don't have a high level of understanding or know-how, but I enjoy using tools and loosening nuts and fixing things physically
Mm-hmm.
and into a way that I haven't I need to explore more, I think.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that I don't know. Maybe I could enjoy. It's just I know that the amount of time I'm going to put into it. For me. It's a competence issue. Like,
Mm.
yeah, I probably could figure out how to do it. It's just going to take me 3 times as long
Okay.
this go around. You know.
And let's come back to that because I've got John Suits in the comment section watching. He says,
John
"Hey
Suits.
Judah, what's going on? What's going on, Judah? John used to be my boss at Chess Scholars. He's probably one of the best chess players I've ever seen, and he speaks Spanish and plays guitar
Oh,
excellently. And to that point about being able to master certain things,
mm-hmm.
what was that last thing you said? Dang it, I lost it.
Competence,
Competence.
mastery, competence. I mean, efficiency.
Yeah. Being able to submit yourself to somebody else and commit so I don't want to go back into time, but submit the effort that it takes. Time does measure that effort that is taken. The truth is we have 70, through our experience, we've had we can look and say probably we're going to die at about 70 or 80, right? Do we want to, I'll say it, the amount of time we have left does become sort of a valuable commodity. Do we spend it on fixing cars, like as you and I get older, and we talked about this also in our discussion about honing our craft and counseling and teaching. What do we do as we get older? I am struck with the idea of, like, as I get older as a man, do I pour myself into something that my body is going to be able to do less and less of,
Well,
or not?
it just depends on your mobility, right? Like there's plenty. I remember when I moved up here to Southwest Virginia, I worked at a winery the first year I was here, and the couple that owned it were in their late 60s, early 70s, and that guy could work. I mean, that brother could work, get out in the vineyard and just work.
Yeah.
But I mean, just as an example, I know a guy that owns a local cigar shop. Was in the Navy for 20 years and retired, came back. Well, his wife's originally from here. He's from like the Greensboro area, North Carolina. So they relocate back here. He takes over the cigar shop from his father-in-law. And in the last, I think, 5 or 6 years, he has restored 3 automobiles from like the frame up, just from what he learned on YouTube.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Wow.
it just goes to show you that we humans are adaptable. It's great. Like
We have immense capacity, right?
Yeah,
more capacity than we give ourselves credit for.
Correct. And the only thing that, other than disability in our last breath, like there's just a lot of possibilities. So yeah, if you like, twisting, turning a wrench, then go at it. Why not? Yeah, this guy has done everything short of, I think, he's done some painting. Like over time, he's just about done everything that you can do on a car. I think there were a few things that like he may have hired somebody to do for the simple reason that they were really good at that particular thing.
Could get it done faster.
Correct. And to get it done right. Like something that,
Right,
he just wanted to get done well. But
Well,
yeah, he's restored 2 trucks in a old like truck van thing. I mean, he's pretty cool.
So there's a conflict in me of a side that wants to do it myself and learn, and I want the power to control. I think, and that's what I think it comes to conquer. There's something in my maleness, I do believe,
or
and
your
it may be something
Judaness.
else, Judaness too, that wants to conquer, right? Like I see a problem, I want to solve it in the sense that like it feels like an enemy I have to conquer. Now, but there's an opposing animus. There's opposing side of me that's quite relational. And I'm a counselor, and there is a side of me that wants to use every resource possible. And so somebody comes around that may be a source of a resource, right? Like tap it, right? Like, let's figure it out. Let's work together. Let's be successful together.
And I think the thing that comes to my mind, it's like, it's one thing if you're working on a truck, if you've lost your way, if you've got some problem that, and I think this is where we get stuck. It's like, I should be able to do this on my own. The thought that kind of lingers. Well, this particular problem, I should be able to solve it on my own. Versus bigger problems.
Shooting on ourselves, though.
Well, I mean, it's an arbitrary rule. But what do we do when we have bigger problems, systemic problems?
Yeah.
Where it ultimately becomes relational, politics, policy, government.
Negotiating the relationships,
leadership. Like leadership is highly relational. Like, y'all, we're going over here. So now you're talking about persuasion and rhetoric, and but it's leadership. Um, and even that, those are areas where, even we're talking, bigger problems, more complex problems, that we sometimes, leaders, and I'll put this in the context of leadership, like leaders often, frequently, sadly, don't have the wherewithal to ask for help or guidance.
And from a different perspective,
yeah,
recently I heard Jordan Peterson. I always come back to Jordan Peterson. Crucify me if you will. Jordan Peterson talking about, and he was talking to I forget who he was talking to, but about mentorship.
Ooh.
And how mentorship, when we look at somebody as a mentor, we recognize something of the divine in them. And at first I was like, what the heck does that mean when we recognize something in the divine? Well, there, and the leadership is the aspect of recognizing the divine, right? Like, it's like you would, I'll say, I hate using you. I don't follow people who don't have the divine, right? Like, when I see the divine in somebody else, I say, I want to follow that. That's the mentorship aspect of it. Like, I want to mimic that. Whatever I see in you that is of divinity, of divine, of God, let's learn that. Let's get to the most righteous pinnacle that we can, right?
I would be curious to see how you would define divine in that context.
Well, righteousness. There
Okay.
is no righteousness outside of the divine, and righteousness is the best, right? Good.
So,
Good.
but
It's God.
Okay. But I guess when we talk about divinity, I mean, we're obviously talking about something that we cannot see, taste, touch, smell.
Well, obviously we can experience it somehow, or else we wouldn't have any knowledge of it. Knowledge has to do with experience.
I agree with both of those statements, and I'm still going to stick to my guns that it can neither be seen, tasted, touched, heard.
And remember, that's where I believe that connection is spiritual. There's something that we connect with the divine that cannot be empirical, and yet
I think it is empirical, but because in order for it to be experiential, it has to be empirical. But in empirical, maybe a broader sense then. So senses. I mean, I'll say that there is a spiritual sense, a noetic sense. But I guess in like making this connection between seeing a person, or in making a distinction between a person and their actions, like what's divine about the person.
Well, let me ask you, what do you think is divine?
Well, that's what I'm waiting for you to define, because that's why I asked you.
Divine is anything that is above us that brings us towards righteousness.
Okay. Above us that brings us towards righteousness. See, when I hear divine, I think of a person.
Intangible.
You
can think of a person.
Yeah, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Those would be the people that.
So the persons, is God the only one that's divine?
For me, yes.
Can God be in people?
Yes.
And that's what I'm talking about. There's an aspect of God in people.
Distinction.
I believe that when we see something in a mentor, we're not seeing them, we're seeing God, right?
Like I don't know if I would agree with that statement. Like I hear.
Well, can you see God? Can you see God?
Mm-hmm. In what context?
at all. Anyway,
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely.
can you see him in people?
Um, directly, no.
Well, nobody can see him directly,
Well, actually,
but
no. I
can
think
you?
you can, but because that's
No, no. It
blessed.
says in the Bible you
Blessed,
can't see him
blessed are the
directly.
pure in heart, for they shall.
See God, right? They shall one
Mhm.
day, but
Well,
I'm talking about today. Can we see God?
and Moses did what?
He saw the back of his shoe.
He saw his backside, right? And
Yeah.
he spoke to him as if face to face in the tabernacle, and his face shone.
Okay, so can we see God or not?
What happened to Isaiah?
Can we see God?
Not in the way that I'm seeing you. Best
Okay,
I can tell.
so either we can see him or not. Can we see him or not?
Well, no, I think we have to make very fine distinctions. And that's why I'm asking to define the term, because I don't know if I would agree with the proposition that what we see in a mentor is the divine. I think I think there's a lot of things that can be seen in the mentor that may not necessarily be divine, as if that's the only thing that can be seen in a mentor, or the only
Hold
thing
that thought.
attractive about a mentor. Ooh, John.
John Suit says, I'm enjoying the program. Guys, great.
It's late.
Thanks,
Sorry.
man. But he's got to go to bed.
It's bedtime.
Great work. I gotta hit the sack, brother. Get some sleep. Appreciate it. Appreciate you tuning in. I don't
Thank you.
expect anybody to tune into a whole hour of us arguing or rambling. But here's the thing. Thing.
All right. Here's a thing.
Do you think we're attracted to goodness?
Can we be attracted to goodness?
Yes. No. Are we attracted to goodness?
Well, are you asking that in the sense that goodness is the only thing that we're attracted to?
No, I'm just saying, is goodness attractive?
I think goodness can be attractive, because I don't think goodness is essentially
can it be
attractive.
unattractive? Because yes. Can goodness be unattractive?
Yes. People are unattracted by real goodness all the time.
I don't know. Maybe
that's called sin.
No, sin is being attracted and still rejecting it.
Well, rejecting it, but we're responsible for our own affections.
You can reject something that you're attracted to, though.
You can reject something that you are attracted to. You can also not be attracted to something that is.
I do not believe
attractive.
I think that goodness in itself is intrinsically attractive. We can disagree. Do you think God is attractive?
To whom?
Does he not draw all men to himself?
In the sense of attraction?
Isn't that what attraction means?
Not necessarily. Draw.
Tell me what you believe attraction means.
Draw. Like a net.
Attracting.
I draw in a net, but that's not necessarily attraction.
Well, what is attraction to you then?
It's traction, but maybe not
what
necessarily.
What is attraction to you? Define attraction.
Sure. It's when so attraction as far as people, that's affective, in the sense that, like a compulsion, it is something that we are propelled towards by our affections, by our emotions, by our desires. My trouble is that God is often, for many people, not attractive. God as he is, as he's revealed, is to people as they currently are, in the state in which we find ourselves, is not always, in every circumstance, attractive. I can't make sense of the world as it is, and with the contra, the opposite statement of that God is implicitly and utterly attractive, because that's not the way that it, like, the evidence is so
But
contrary
see,
to that.
you're conflating the word compulsive and attractive. I'm not saying that he compulsively attracts people.
Oh, I'm not saying it's compulsive. That's an internal locus.
In the sense that a flower smells good
Mm-hmm.
and does not smell good to everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because some people
A flower
are
smells.
perverted.
No, a flower smells. It smells good to some people.
No.
It doesn't smell good to others.
Well, see, that's where we diverge. I believe in universal beauty. I believe in universal attractiveness.
Uh-huh.
Just because everybody doesn't experience it that way does. Many people are perverted. I agree with you. There are people that are damaged, right? And they switch around the idea. They smell something that is good, and because of uh, their own volition, and their own ideas
Or
are
sure.
they pervert it, right?
Now, is God
However,
objectively beautiful?
that doesn't make good bad.
No, no. I
It's still
mean,
good.
and that's,
Just
I think,
because
that
of their
the
perception.
trouble I have with the notion of attraction, though, is because it's not based on something that's objective. It is highly subjective. Attraction is highly subjective.
Well, see, here's the thing: is that I believe that good is intrinsically attractive because it's
As
good.
a property of goodness. I'm not sure if I would agree with that. Not because of the nature of goodness, but because of the nature of attraction.
I believe that all men want health. I believe ultimately there's something in the nature of God that is in the image of God that desires that we were created to want righteousness. There are perversions, and sin does damage.
Yeah,
We see
I'm not sure if I'd
through
agree
glass
with that.
darkly. All
Yeah,
right. Well,
I guess I would put it not as so. Again, like, attraction is desire as opposed to longing. So, and what I mean there, like, again, I'm taking the stance that it's highly subjective. So when I'm attracted to something, because of something in me, I am propelled towards it. Like, much of, I think, what's, in my opinion, what's often associated with the image of God is actually the opposite. It's a God shaped. People talk about God shaped hole. Like, it's really the essence of it for us is found in the negative rather than the positive. It's a lack rather than it's a vacuum or a lack rather than something
are
that
we
we're
not
propelled towards.
attracted to things that we lack? In other words, if I am hungry, I lack food. Am I not attracted to food?
Yeah, but I'm not sure if it has the same properties in the sense that we're talking
Why
about, as
not?
far as
Explain to me how it's different.
that's when I go back to how is what different. We'll go
So
back
you
to define.
said that we have a God-shaped hole.
Yep.
And that is not attraction. It's something else. I
Yeah.
say, well, how is that not similar to when we lack? We have a food-shaped hole, a
Sure.
water-shaped hole.
Yeah.
We are attracted to water or food.
It's different in this. That's when I go back to you cannot. The divine is something you cannot touch, taste, smell, feel.
Obviously, we can
Because
experience it, though,
God
right?
is, well,
But can we
we experience,
experience the
but
divine?
yes.
How do we experience it outside of senses?
No, well, I would say noetically, and by participation.
What does
So
that
it's,
mean?
yeah, that's the thing about, in my opinion, like the radical otherness of God.
Can the human body
the
Can the
hiddenness
human
of God.
body experience God
Yes.
outside of senses?
Yes.
How?
noetically.
What does that mean?
That sixth sense.
So the body cannot feel, touch, smell. So was Jesus God?
Hmm?
Was Jesus God?
Yes, and man,
And did
with
people see him?
yes, but did they
So
see
did
God?
they see God?
They saw a man.
Did they see God?
They saw a man.
But did they see God?
No.
Then they did not.
Bec-
Then God is not man, right?
Correct.
And God was not Jesus. Jesus
Wrong.
was not.
No, there's a tertius quid to this.
I
There,
mean,
there's a tertius
this is
quid. This is
difficult though.
classic. This is.
I'm talking about after the transfiguration.
What about it?
Did they see God?
No, they
Did
saw a
they
man.
touch God? Did they touch
Yes,
Jesus?
yes, they did touch Jesus, and Jesus
So
is a
they were
man.
able to see Jesus and touch Jesus
Mm-hmm.
and not experience God.
Well, see now, the touching God and experiencing God are two different things.
So did Abraham see God?
When
I'm just asking you, did Abraham see God?
that would be a
Did
really important.
at all, ever? With his eyes, did Abraham see God? Because the Bible said he did.
Mm-hmm. And that's when I go back to the question of when are you referring?
The Bible says that
Yeah,
that
you could say
Abraham
that.
saw God.
Yeah, when and where. You can say the Bible said, but that doesn't tell me anything. And the second
Well,
book of
that says that
Hezekiah,
he saw God.
when and where.
What does the Bible mean by Abraham saw
Well,
God?
well, I'm asking you where in the Bible it says that.
It says that he saw God in many places. You're the one who brought it up. When
I
did
didn't say, I didn't mention Abraham. Don't shift the burden on me here. I didn't mention, you're the one who dropped,
has
you name
well
dropped Abraham, not me.
well because you're the one who brought him up.
No,
Did
I'm Moses.
originally you brought him up?
Moses. No, Moses.
Oh,
Isaiah.
Moses. So did
Paul in
Moses
the
see God?
third heaven, right?
Did Moses see God?
Did Moses see God?
Yeah.
I think he saw a manifestation of God for sure.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about.
But
Did he see the divine?
these are now that one I would agree with. Now, did he see the divine? In that sense, yes. Like, so talking about Abraham, when the three angels come and visit Abraham,
Abraham
is that
saw my day and was glad.
where's Jim? That's
No,
probably
that's not what I'm
Jim.
referring to.
No.
No, that's Scott.
Oh,
So
Scott.
Jim says, if God were attractive to everyone, in your definition, I guess he's talking to me, then there wouldn't be anybody going to hell. Now, see, that's where I disagree. I believe that we are attracted to good. All of us are attracted to good. And sin is saying no.
Is sin ever
To me,
non-volitional?
no.
Okay.
No, I do not believe sin is non-volitional.
Okay.
Because my definition of sin has to do with missing the mark. And
That's a part,
anytime
sure.
that we take part in an action
But
of
that's the
shooting
interesting.
somewhere.
So yeah, but missing the mark.
Well, what does volitional mean?
Well, it's a choice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's and that's why I do appreciate amartia as this metaphor, that missing the mark, which is, an archery term. It's
Yeah.
one thing. It's one thing if I intentionally miss, right?
Yeah.
But is it possible to aim well and still miss?
Would that be sin?
Would it be sin? Based on the metaphor of that word, I would say, sure.
That metaphor. Now, but see, here's the thing: is the volition? So to me, volition means participation. Volition isn't necessarily choice, but it's participation.
Explain further.
It's like intentionality. So, like,
I intended to miss.
I intended to put my foot down. I missed, but I intended to put my foot down. Maybe I shouldn't have put my foot down. And maybe I should have thought more about where I put my foot. But the fact of the matter is I put my foot down, and I put it down in the wrong place.
I chose to put my foot in this spot. Okay.
Like when somebody shoots an arrow, they chose that spot. Whether or not
they chose to shoot, chose to shoot an arrow, right?
Yeah. And so they
and there are
participated. It was an intentional. It was an intentional activity.
Yeah.
That they chose the spot they aimed at, right?
Sure. Yeah. I guess I kind of stick closer to the metaphor as far as like it's the outcome of it that is the problem. Like we didn't hit the mark.
Yeah, but
whether we chose not to hit the mark, or
but if you take
a series of events,
if you take the analogy and to its end, can we get better at sin? We don't sin if we practice more?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
So practice is what we need to do more of.
Well, it's a thing. That's not the like.
No. If I practice more shooting arrows, I will get better at it.
Yes, and it's not the only factor.
Exactly. I do not think that
it is a primary factor as far as like what we have control over.
It is a right incomplete.
And then we can talk about like practicing well versus practicing poorly. So no, I digress. Attraction and JP. I'm gonna blame this one on Dr. Peterson. I don't even know what he's talking about.
Seeing the divine. So going back to like, I will fight for this. Like not because of JP, but because like what I see in mentors, like what I strive to be in people I see is not something of what anybody, I will say this, what anybody strives to be in somebody else. People don't see sin in other people and strive to be like that. I do not. They do not take on mentors. No, they do not take on mentors to. I do believe people sin. People do not sin and take on mentors to sin better. Doesn't happen.
Oh, just say that again one more time, very slowly. So, no one, or I'll say it, no one gets a mentor in sinning.
Yes.
No person.
No one gets a mentor to strive in sinning more. Now, there may be something divine in so sin can be accomplished through good things, right? Do you agree?
Can sin be accomplished through
we're
good
shooting
things?
arrows. Is shooting arrows a bad thing?
No. I'm not sure if it's I don't think it's necessarily a moral action in and of itself.
Well, is sin a moral action?
Yes.
Okay, but then shooting arrows is the analogy. It's
a metaphor.
A metaphor.
It's a metaphor. Okay. Because eventually language breaks down.
Right.
You ride it hard enough.
That's the point I was making earlier.
So you've never known criminals. You've never met anybody that looked up to somebody who is criminal and learned to be a better criminal.
Something divine. Can criminals be doing something? Criminals are unable to do anything divine.
So if I as a, let's just say, an expert car thief acquire a mentor, a mentee, a mentee.
Mhm.
I as a mentoring.
No. I'm not talking
Perfect.
about acquiring a mentee. I'm talking about the mentor. When a person looks for a mentor, I do not believe they are looking for sinful satisfaction. No, sinful, and this goes back to satisfying the selfish thing. We don't look for. I don't think we look for what do you call it? Directions, right? We want to do it on our own. We want to do sin on our own. We want to solve it on our own. But when we look for somebody else to help us, there's always something divine in that.
I'm not sure if I can agree with most of what you just said in the last 2 minutes. It's categorical. You made a universal statement. No one ever
looked for a mentor.
Gets himself into a mentor-mentee relationship.
Yes.
With the intention of becoming a better sinner.
Right.
Ever.
Well, no, I didn't say that. No, you're taking the reverse. I'm saying there's always something divine. When somebody looks for a mentor, there's always something divine that's drawing them up. Anytime they're trying to better themselves.
If you're learning how to sin better, how is that up?
Well, we aren't necessarily always trying to sin better. We're trying to do something better, and it may be sin, right? And it can easily be sin, but we're missing the mark, right? We're shooting arrows.
But what was divine in the first place to get us to becoming a better carjacker, prostitute, drug dealer?
Let me ask you something. Is success
world-class
divine?
Assassin? Not
Is there any divinity in success ever?
No. As a universal category?
Yes, I see.
No.
See, that's the difference between you and I. I believe that anything good is of God. I believe anything good is of God.
Okay.
If it's good, it is
good
of
in what
God.
Good in what way?
Well, good question.
If I'm a successful carjacker, is that good?
No, but is there something of the? Do you think so? In other words, like, we're complex people, right? Like, if we reduce everything here, if we reduce everything, so if a gang member seeks mentor to be a better gang member, sure, but is everything about, so if they are successful in being good gang members, are they solely relying on demonic power?
What do you mean by solely relying on demonic power? I'm not sure if
Is there anything in their success that is reliant on a divine imago Dei that is helping them become better? And see, this is where I think we diverge, because I believe the imago Dei calls us higher every day in everything that we are. It is in us. It is irrevocable, right? Like, it's inside of us and pulling us higher. Now, do we corrupt that and pull it down? Yes, I do believe we pull it down. But there are things.
So it goes up and down, right?
There are things in us that constantly bring us up. And I think when a young man, even if it is a gang that he's looking at, what is he looking at? He's looking at fellowship. I can have fellowship. Fellowship. Sure. Is there anything sinful about fellowship?
Friends,
is
wealth,
fellowship sinful?
Protection. It can be.
Sure, it can be, but is it ultimately sinful?
I think the way you're using some of these words,
I think it's ultimately divine. I think fellowship is ultimately divine. I think success is ultimately divine. You know, like, if it's real success.
But if it's ultimately divine, then how can it be perverted?
Because divine can be perverted, or else we wouldn't have sin. Because we are divine. We are made in the image of God. That is divine.
No, we're human.
but we have divinity in us. Yes or no?
I would no. I don't.
People do not have the divinity in us. How do we see God?
I'll go back to we don't.
We never see God.
You don't see the unseeable.
I disagree. We see God through each other, and that is scriptural.
Show it.
He says, "Love your neighbor as yourself, and love thy God above all things." Right? Two things, 2 commandments. He gave us 2.
Yeah,
love your neighbor as
yourself.
It
doesn't say love the God in your neighbor. That's not.
But there are. He says these are 2 commandments of the same purpose.
No, these are the 2 greatest commandments. They're not the same purpose. If you could,
he says, let's see.
Radically, and this has, in my opinion, for me has a lot to do with the radical otherness of God, and it also has a lot to do with
he says the second is like unto it. How is the second like unto it? How is love thy neighbor as thyself like unto?
Because the duty is to love.
But love what?
Apathetic people.
Right.
Yeah.
In the same way we're to love God.
He doesn't say love the God.
He said is but you just said that the only thing that is likened to it. You just said the only thing that is likened to it is the love aspect of it.
Is love. Yeah.
So we were to love people in the same way that we are loved to God.
No, we are not.
Then what is likened to it?
Like, not the same as, like.
I think you're wrong on that.
Because that's the distinction between. Because if you don't make that distinction, it's idolatry. Not to mention it's panentheism, but whatever.
How can we possibly understand God if we cannot see Him in each other?
That's an interesting epistemological question. We can talk about that some other time.
I don't think it's impossible to understand God and the divine. I think it's impossible, and I could be swayed. I would like to talk more about that. Maybe we'll talk more about that next time. But I think it's impossible to understand God because the only thing we have to understand God is each other. Because you said yourself,
it's not the only thing.
See God. We cannot experience God epistemologically, right?
We can, but in very.
You said we can't.
No, we cannot. That's not.
So we can experience Him with our sight. No, we do not have any other senses in the Bible. The Bible does not outline any other sense.
I'll work on that one for some. I'll work on that one for you. I'll get those lined up.
But I mean, as far as I can tell, the Bible does not talk about a sixth sense, right?
Not in those specific terms. No,
never talks about a sixth sense.
Well, but I'll just beg this question. So, when Paul talks about being lifted into the third heaven, where and how does he have that experience? Whether inside of the body or out of the body, right? To use Paul's own words.
That's a good question.
He's not very specific, but he is very clear about having an experience. So, yeah.
Is it possible? I mean, obviously it's possible that he experienced them epistemologically, right?
Well, so the question, the epistemology isn't a way of human knowing. That's just talking about knowledge. How do we know in general? The question that I would say is, in what sense did he experience God?
I mean, there is a possibility he experienced him through normal, what we all know as senses: vision, physical, like a touch, smell.
Maybe, but it's actually very not. It's not very clear. It's actually
But here,
the
but see,
evidence is ambiguous.
here's the difficulty I have with that, Josh, is that if we can't experience God through as a human, because humans
Well, no,
experience this way,
yes,
right?
yes. So let's just say we'll agree on this. You and I will never have a non-human experience. How about that?
That's right.
Okay.
And so if we cannot experience God through human experience,
Well,
how do
through bodily senses? That was
no, you said human experience. You said
No.
we will never have a non-human experience.
We will never have a non-human experience. So this begs the question of what is the realm of human experience? And is it totally is it limited only to somatic sensories? I mean, somatic senses. Like, is it only within my body? Now, obviously, there's a lot going on in our bodies, and we could talk about that for a long time.
So,
however,
maybe we need to talk about extrasensory experiences. I'm, me, I believe in magic. So,
it's magic. Okay. So,
Scott says the person inspired by someone else who has done evil, who then does worse evil, is perceiving what about their own actions? The person who's inspired by someone else who has done evil.
Inspirited.
Yeah, inspired. Now,
Inspirited.
I mean, I think that. Oh, he said, inspirited means inspired. Is what you're saying?
Inspiration, inspiro. Yeah, I mean, spirit. Okay, you get it.
So, are there those that are inspired by demons? Is what you're saying?
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of forces that inspire people.
Not in the Bible, though. Those that are inspired by demons do not get better. They do not get better, right? They destroy.
Get better at what?
They destroy. People in the Bible that are demon possessed destroy, hurt, and do not thrive.
I'm not sure if I would
name any person in the Bible that was said to be
influenced.
No, I'm not talking about influence. I'm talking about that was possessed by a demon,
demonized,
and thrived. Every time you hear about it, they destroyed. They hurt themselves and others. They hurt themselves.
Yeah, I'm not sure if thriving would necessarily be the category that I would use. I'm just trying to think here. Simon the Magi would be one that I could think of who, in the Book of Acts,
hurt other people.
Yeah. Now, would I say that he was relatively successful on a worldly level? Yeah.
I mean, I don't see that in the scripture. Where does it say he was successful on a worldly level?
Oh, well, he was making money.
Does it say that he made money?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. That's why we call it simony. To attempt to give people, spiritual powers or gifts for profit.
Yeah.
That's the one that just immediately comes to mind. And I understand, and obviously we'll just put demonic influence on a spectrum because we like spectrums, you and I. Obviously, if you're totally out of your wits, like living in the caves and gnashing in teeth and cutting yourself and throwing yourself in the fire, that kind of demonic activity. That's one thing, but
that's the only thing we really see that is called demonic. Simon is not called demon possessed. He's called a false prophet, but he's not called demon possessed.
I think Peter says something kind of really pointed to him. If I remember correctly,
he calls him a false prophet.
No, he says something like spawn of Satan or something. But
spawn of Satan. I'm just acolyte of Satan.
I'm loosely paraphrasing there. Loosely paraphrasing. But let's look at this. Like, look, was Nazi Germany a society, in particular individuals, that there have been other periods of history where there's been evil on that kind of scale. They pop up.
I
But
guess
influence.
here's the main question.
Yeah. Let's get back to the main question. Why can't men ask for help?
Can we, as men,
Mm-hmm.
isn't it a desire for goodness that propels us
To not ask for directions?
no to ask for directions? Not asking for directions is a act of selfishness, and
Or
I can
pride.
do it on my own. Pride.
Yeah, pride.
Mentorship. So this goes back to the idea of mentorship, right? Because this is what the argument was.
Okay.
Mentorship, I do believe that asking somebody else how to do something, there is something particularly, to me, there's something particularly divine in that, because it is being able to say, I am not able, I see something in you that is better. And I think that is something that is divine.
Well, okay, I'll meet you halfway. Because if we flip it on its end, like asking for help, from my perspective, like I think that's certainly humble, right? That's a very organic, like an appropriately human, a good human way of going about things. But we're looking at things from the perspective of the mentee, but from the perspective of the mentor, this is a place that I might tip a hat to divine-like quality. Because what does a mentor do but reach down? Right? Like reach down to pull someone up.
Right.
And it's something that oftentimes the mentee could not do on their own.
Yeah.
So I mean there is a divine. Now to that point, I will say there is a divine-like quality in mentorship coming from the mentor, right?
I'll take it. I'll take it. Well, wouldn't you say though, from the mentoree, there is something saying, isn't there something divine in being able, or of the divine, to be able to say, I am not good enough. I need something outside of me.
Well, yeah, that would be very undivine-like, in my opinion, because because the divinity does not need anything.
Exactly, and that's what it's saying.
The divinity does not lack anything, does not need anything.
Exactly.
Well, the divinity doesn't, but from the mentee, I mean,
a mentee reaching for divinity. I'm not saying
but
that it's the divinity in
reaching,
them,
but we're never as a mentee, we're never really reaching for the absence of lack, right? The total fulfillment. It's often very skill or specific. Yeah, I guess in my mind, like the thing that's most divine is reaching down and lifting up.
But the question for me, I have no idea what that looks like from God's perspective, and I don't want to know, because I don't think I can know. What I want to know
what
is
it means to reach down and pull up.
No, yeah. What I want to know more is
I can tell you what it looks like.
No, I'm talking about like as far as divinity goes. What all I know is the ability to say, as a human, I am not good enough. There is nothing in me that has the ability to go up, and I need to reach up to get higher.
Yeah, but so you're not reaching up to get higher. I mean, I guess that's there's certainly the desire to go higher, right? But it's to go to some place that I could not get on my own.
Exactly. How is that not a reflection of the divine?
Well, I don't think that. I think that's a reflection of of humanity, like of need, of desire. I think what's divine is reaching down.
Well, I
And when
don't
you said,
know.
I don't even know what that would
I
look
have
like,
no
that's the whole incarnation, right? That's
I have
reaching
no
down.
but can you know what the divine's motives are?
Oh yes, because
You can know what the divine's motives
those are
are. What are
clearly
the divine motive?
love.
What does that mean?
Well, everything that we see, everything that we experience,
Do you
can,
know
if
what it
we can
means?
use the word excess.
Do you know what it means to have no error and reaching down to something that does?
Do I know what that means?
Yeah.
Not, no, not in that way. No,
Can you
but the
conceptualize it?
no,
Can
but
you
the action.
conceptualize it?
Sure. I mean,
You
it
can
ultimately falls
conceptualize
apart.
it.
Reaching down out of perfection. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you know what perfection is.
No, I know what
And
reaching
you
down
can
is.
conceptualize.
I
You
know.
can conceptualize perfection.
I can know. I know what reaching down is.
And
I can
therefore,
hypothesize about perfection.
yes, because you know what it means to be a mentor, Joshua. You
No,
know what it means to
I
see a
know,
mentor.
to reach down and lift up, that action, right,
Yeah.
is a metaphor, and that I think I can relate with.
Yeah.
Out of
And that's what
perfection,
I'm
no.
saying. And that's what I see. When I see a mentor, I'm not seeing I don't know what the divine actually looks like, Josh. I've, like
Then how are you attracted
the,
to it? I'll bust your chops
because
today.
I'm attracted to goodness.
Uh-huh.
I'm attracted to goodness.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that goodness
Mm-hmm.
is
What
our
see,
definition, is
goodness
our
starts to
definition of the
sound like an
divine.
abstraction to me.
Oh, of course it is. Most of
Okay.
life is an abstraction.
I don't think that's life. I think that's actually a mental.
Goodness?
No, figment would be the word I would use.
Goodness is a figment?
Goodness is a word.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. But what is it?
What is anything?
No. What is goodness for
It
you?
is the best.
But what is the best
What is
of
anything?
what? The best of what?
Of everything.
The best of everything.
Everything I know.
The best of
Yeah.
everything. But what is that?
What is, I mean, I can't define everything, right?
Okay.
Like, if I could
But
define
I don't think you can
everything,
define good or best either. So,
it is that thing that I reach for. And I think in my, and it may
okay.
not be your experience,
Sure.
but in my experience, it is what everyone reaches for.
Okay.
Goodness.
So everyone at all times is reaching for the goodness.
Yes. Now they may be perverted,
Uh-huh.
and they,
But if we're perverted, then what are we reaching for? Are we reaching for
in
the
their mind,
goodness?
they're reaching for goodness. Yes, they're in their mind, they're reaching for the goodness. Like, some people believe that the smell of poop is good. That doesn't mean that smell of poop is good, right?
I think it's just poop, but sure.
Some people think that pain is good, right? Do you believe that?
I think some people, yeah, some people
Yeah,
do find that some pain is good. Not all
right.
pain, but
But
specific kinds of
I
pain.
I don't think that it is good for them. Many people are perverted in their way.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that good does not exist.
Well, I'm not saying that
I
good doesn't
believe
exist. I'm just asking, what are they reaching for?
they're reaching for good, what they think is good.
They're subject, not objective goodness, right? So again, we've already split here. So people aren't
There's no
reaching for
such
the.
thing. There's no such thing. There is a such thing as objective goodness, but there's no such thing as us being able to fully be able to say what that is, right? Because we are all subject to our experience.
That's another interesting discussion about objective goodness. I think the thing that I will most likely object to are categorical universals. So to say that everyone is always reaching for the good that's a categorical universal. I think there's very few things that are categorically universal.
Well,
That I do not
guess
believe is one of them that's valid.
I don't have as much problem with the categorical
I know you
universal
don't.
because I believe we are all made in the image of God.
Yeah, but how
So
does
we
the
all
fact that
so
we're
we
made in the
all
image
were
of God make
well, let me
a
ask you a
larger
question.
number
Is
of
that
categorical universals?
because is that a categorical universal that we were all made in the image of God?
That is one of the few
Okay.
that
But what does that
categorical
mean?
universals.
What does that mean that we were made in the image of God?
That is you know what? We should talk about that sometime. Like really
Yeah,
dig into that one.
I think that's where it comes down to.
that actually is an interesting the number of um, thinkers and thoughts about what that term means, um, and even I think the distinction between image and likeness, because
I
those are two distinct Hebrew words that are used there in Genesis.
Yeah.
And many of the church fathers have made a lot of hay about that distinction.
Both sides.
And then some have like collapsed them. Yeah, there's a lot of different thoughts on that.
That would be a good place to go next time.
That would.
I think this was a good man. It got me thinking for sure. Scott says divine light quality. Divine light quality. Interesting. Where did this term originate? Divine light quality. I don't know. I don't know where it originated, but
well, we could have a whole show on God as light or metaphor.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, because light, you cannot experience light without vision, can you? Can you? Have you?
This is the interesting thing. Like, am I being affected by light if I can't see it? Yes.
If you've never seen it.
Am I being affected by light even if I can't see it?
Like, no, but I mean in your choices.
I'm not sure if I know what you mean.
If you're blind and you've never seen light.
Mm-hmm. So you've never seen light, but does that mean that light stops having an effect on you? Even though you can't
like
see
a blind person. Yeah, like a blind person.
Yeah, like, you step outside, get vitamin D, all that stuff. All the other
effects
that's not
of light. Light was before the sun. God created light before he created the sun.
Mm-hmm. And there's still light bouncing around, right?
But what we get vitamin D from is the sun.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And it's also
right.
it's also light. And then there's divine light.
Maybe. That was my point. The person performing massive evil thinks they are doing a good thing, right?
Maybe.
I don't.
Or maybe
I don't
they
know.
think they're doing evil.
Here's the thing: is that I think there's a very huge distinction, and maybe you don't believe this.
Sure.
Maybe Scott doesn't believe this, but I think there's a huge distinction between pleasure and good. So I do not believe that all good is pleasurable.
That's
but
true.
I do believe that all good is attractional. I don't believe that everything that is attractive is pleasurable.
Can you give me an example of that?
Yeah,
there's something that's attractive.
Yeah,
and not pleasurable.
Yes, gravity. It gives me no pleasure.
And your feelings about gravity are what?
None. I have no feelings about it, but it attracts me towards the earth.
Okay, well, that's a verbal trick. That was a good one.
No, that is not a verbal trick. There are things that draw us towards them, right? God draws us towards him
Uh-huh.
even if we are not,
like
even
just
if
like
we
gravity.
do not derive
just like gravity?
attraction from it.
Just like
Yes,
gravity.
much like gravity, not just like gravity, but much like gravity.
Okay.
God attracts us, calls us, right? Like a
Mhm.
calling. A calling is not always pleasurable. People submit to callings without the pleasure seeking fulfillment. A calling, when somebody, duty is another thing.
Mhm.
Duty is something that attracts us.
I'm not sure if duty is attractive
in
in
spite
the
in
sense that we use,
of,
or the sense that we're using that term.
well, I guess that's how I use the term. Duty attracts us in the sense that it makes us, it draws us
I would
towards
agree that like
an
duty
end.
calls us,
Okay.
but attraction,
It moves us.
attraction.
See, and maybe it's our definition of attraction, because I believe attraction
Define the
is something
terms.
that draws us towards it, right? Like
It's
an
good
end.
Socratic dialogue. Step one.
It
Define the
draws us
term.
towards an end, right? Like it moves us towards itself. Duty. It moves us towards itself. The duty itself, like nobody says, my duty is to protect my father, and therefore I will run as far as I can away from my father, right? No, duty attracts us towards itself, right?
But what about duty is attractive? And how is it attractive?
That is a discussion for another time. I'm not
Put a
talking
pin
about
in it.
how.
Okay.
I said it was attractive. I didn't necessarily say how.
I'm not gonna define how it's attractive, but I'm just gonna make the statement that it is. Okay. I'm with
Well, I mean, ultimately, I believe duty attracts us because it attracts us towards good. It is what we believe is good.
you.
It is good. Goodness attracts humans. It attracts humans. It doesn't attract dogs.
Some humans. I don't know. Maybe it does attract dogs.
No. Goodness, virtue.
All dogs go to heaven.
No, actually, the only scripture in all of the Bible that talks about God says dogs. Sorry, dyslexia. It says that the curs are on the outside of heaven. Sorry.
Well, yeah, dogs in Semitic culture are not a highly favored critter.
Well, I go by scripture. So.
Yeah, there's lots of mentions, lots of references to dogs in the Psalms, and they're not good.
All right. Well, all dogs, they may go to heaven. I don't know. There may be some image of them in heaven. I don't know.
Next week, we're going to discuss how many angels you can fit on the head of a pin.
I do want to talk at some point, though, about, getting to the core of what goodness is. What is goodness?
Well, I mean, since you're a classical conversations educator, I mean, do you have like an elevator speech for truth, beauty, and goodness?
No, but I go back to John Tal Murphy. Good is a vocabulary word that originates from the original word God. It's the highest form that we all as humans strive to attain. It is the criteria. When we say something is good, we're saying that it is best. And there's nothing better than God.
But God is not a thing. Okay, anyway, you were saying.
There's nothing better than God, right?
I don't know if I can agree with that statement.
There's something that's better than God? There's a thing that is better than God?
There's no thing. No, there's nothing.
Is there anything that we can conceptualize as humans that is higher than God? No.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if that's a useful statement, but
and that's why good, our word good comes from the word God.
I'm gonna have to look into that one. I'm a little skeptical of the etymology of the word good. Now I'm gonna have to dig in.
Comes from John Tel Murphy. I don't know.
Brother John, doctor. Well, he wasn't a doctor. He was Professor Murphy.
Professor John
Professor Murphy.
Tel
I have grown to appreciate him over time.
Yeah,
In my memory, like he's
like a fine wine.
his stature in my mind has grown over time.
I come back to wait. Was that John Tel Murphy or was it Collier? It was Collier. Professor Collier.
Was that a Professor Collier statement?
That was a Professor Collier statement. I can't tell. One of those. But both of those guys have grown in my stature.
Grown in your stature? Grown in stature in your mind. In your heart.
Grown in stature. As far as my experience. Ooh, that's a good question. What is experience? What is matured experience? Right? Because it's not the original experience, which is the empirical, like touch, hear, see. It's it's a memory of our physical experience.
Yeah, that's assuming that our memory is accurate.
If our memory is not,
then what is it?
then it's just a dream.
Or is it a little bit of both?
I think it's probably.
That's
all right. Well,
we'll go down that rabbit trail one day, but not maybe. I'll kick around. No, I think it could be fun for us to talk about truth, beauty, and goodness.
Truth, beauty, and goodness. Yeah,
those are always themes to come back to and rumble about. And the image of God in man.
Yeah, I guess that's the real thing, right?
Like, that would be one.
Truth, beauty, and goodness is irrelevant if we don't get to the heart of what the image of God is.
And the thing about truth, beauty, and goodness is the thing I enjoy about that is, those are concepts that are in the commons, so to speak. Like, you don't have to be a Christian to have a useful conversation, a helpful conversation about truth, beauty, and goodness in the human life. Now, ultimately, there's an aspect of like, and so what? If if we all just die and that's it. From an existential perspective, you could still have, you can talk about these things to some purpose, but it does lack a universal and ultimate sense outside of some discussion about the divinity, and because the scriptures start off with this presupposition that there's something about man that's unique out of all of matter, out of all of the stuff that God created. We as humans are really unique.
Yeah,
we're the only ones with the stamp, with the maker's mark. And what is it?
And it's not even, well, I guess I take umbrage at the maker's mark. It's we're brought out of the maker in some way, right? Like there's something imago, the image of God.
Well, but what's an image?
Yeah, I guess what's an image? Yeah, we could talk about that. Yeah.
What's an icon? If you use the Greek word.
Let's definitely talk about that next time. That's got to be something we talk about.
Well, we might bust it. We'll have to figure out how to bust it up into pieces, because we
take it 1 week at a time.
We'll start off on like something, and then we'll go down the rabbit trail.
Right, because we started with men asking for directions, and we ended up in the imaginary.
And then we started talking about divine mentors. So in ultimate categorical
But
goodness.
okay, but time out. You see where that crux is, right? Like, if we ask for
If you
direction,
had just left, yeah. Dr.
we're
Peterson.
not open to mentoring, right?
No, I'm very open to mentoring. I'm just not convinced it's as divine as you might think. I think there's some there are divine like aspects. How about that?
Yeah.
Reaching down and lifting up, I can see as a divine like aspect.
Amen. Well, we'll see you guys next week.
If the Lord's willing and the creek don't rise.
Creek don't rise.